Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frostee Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's up, Los Angeles? How we doing out there? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are listening. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to the LA Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. We are on the LA Football Network, LAFBnetwork.com. All your favorite Los Angeles teams represented 24/7. Get away from mainstream media and coverage. We got your teams all the time, whether it's writing or podcasting or videos. We got it all for you. Also on the Believe Podcast Network, you can check us out there. Find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, on YouTube at LAFB Network. Hit that subscribe button and the bell while you're there. Helps us out as we continue to grow this brand. Certainly appreciate it. Give us a shout. Hit me up on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud. LAFB would love to talk ball with you, or just anything, life, football, weather, Los Angeles, food, anything that's good. Hit me up. Would love to connect with all of you on a more real and personal level. Great show today. Football's back, baby. We've been at training camp the last 2 weeks. Had a lot of content coming out about that. But today's episode got two great guests to join me to give their in-depth analysis from behind the lines, or behind the fence, or in front of the fence, however you want to say it. Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic, Rams beat writer, one of the best Rams beat writers, maybe the best Rams beat writer, jumps on with me to talk some Rams, talk a little bit of the Cowboys-Rams joint practice, some risers and fallers she's seen, and Centergate. What's going on with Brian Allen, Austin Corbett, and the drama on the offensive line. Then right after that, we have the great Gilbert Manzano, Chargers beat writer for the OC Register and LA Daily News, also co-host of Compas on the Beat, which is hosted right here on the LA Football Network, so you can check their podcast out as well. He's going to talk everything, touch briefly on FanFest. We talked mostly about that last episode with Dan Wolkenstein, but we'll give his take on that, but then about the return of training camp on Tuesday and Wednesday, what he's seen from Herbert since then, ASJ, the kicking competition, or lack thereof, whatever you want to call it. We get into all of that. So, as always, today's show brought to you by betonline.ag, our friends in the betting business. Head to betonline.ag today, whether it's mobile or desktop, and you're going to get a 50% welcome bonus when you sign up. All you need is an email address to sign up. Sign up, 50% welcome bonus. It's free money. All the future prop bets, MVP race, divisional races, Super Bowl winner, divisional winners, whatever you want to bet. We can bet on this Rams and Chargers preseason game, parlay that with some of the other preseason games, whatever you want to do. BetOnline.ag has you covered. Win some extra money this season. Have some fun doing it, and a 50% welcome bonus when you sign up today. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I love how this show is growing. Have a really big announcement for this show dropping next week. Tease it with that. I know people hate teasers. It's annoying. But something that I've been working for since starting this network, and I get to announce it next week. Super excited. So make sure to stay tuned. Like I said, subscribe wherever you listen, whether it's podcast platform, audio, or on YouTube at LAFB Network, the LA Football Podcast. You can search us all those ways. So thank you so much. Let's get into it with Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic and get into some Rams talk. All right, Rams fans, always delighted to have on the queen of the Rams beat, Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic, to talk with us all about Rams training camp, which wrapped up yesterday as the team travels back to their headquarters. Jourdan, what's up? Thanks for taking the time. How you doing?
I'm good. I definitely am ready to be back home. I love training camp. I think we talked about this before, Ryan. It's just the best feeling in the world. But it is a grind, and it's built and designed that way. So definitely had a great experience down in Irvine. Was awesome to see so many fans there. I saw you there a couple times, and we shouted each other out, and it was really, really fun to actually see everybody engaging with the team, and I love being out in the sun and the heat and like just writing as many notes as I can and being so close to all the coaching and all of the, just hearing everything that's being said. And it's just, it was a really good experience.
Was that like a Hydro Flask fanny pack you were rocking? There was some contraption you're doing that looked like had a tube with water, or maybe it was booze. I don't know.
Yeah, no, the infamous Hydro fanny. Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was like it's like a little Camelback pack, but it's a fanny pack style, and it came in so clutch because things moved so quickly after in terms of going into the scrum to get Sean McVay and some of the players and everything. And I wouldn't have had time to run back to the media tent. I take notes the whole time and I try to tweet as many updates as I can and write stuff down and everything. So I don't like holding water, but I'm big on hydration. So people were giving me a lot of crap for it, but I was like, once we went out in Oxnard, when we went out to Oxnard, I was holding everybody's sunscreen in my Hydro fanny. So I had the last laugh. It was a good time. It was definitely, I'm trying to get a little bit of a sponsorship going because, it definitely like saved my life on many occasions out there. That's for sure.
Make that happen. Whoever the brand is out there, come on, get Jourdan Rodrigue some free stuff. I would probably be filling it with beer. Unfortunately, that's how degenerate I am. I would just,
a lot of people suggested that. I was like, maybe one of these days, maybe last day of the year, I'll show up. I'll have a little Hydro fanny flask action going on.
I mean, you don't want to pass out before 11-on-11 drills even start. So.
Right. I was like, you know what? I might feel like absolute crap if I do that. It's so hot out here. So yeah,
I know. There was a few days we got that nice ocean breeze, but some days it just funnels in there and it just stays hot. But I feel like half the time you're on here, you beat me to my questions, but I'll kind of follow up. You mentioned the fans being there, how awesome it was. And I agree. I mean, it was crazy busy every single day. I'd go on like a Wednesday. I'm like, okay, it'll probably be fairly empty. I'll have good views from where I am in my vantage point. And it was like fighting the crowds every time. So what was it like? I mean, obviously when you were with Carolina, I'm sure you saw fan crowds there, but your first one with the Rams, how did it compare to some past ones? And then just what was on the inside of the fence, what was kind of the momentum or the vibe like from the fans?
Well, I loved it because you can tell the players feed off of it. And like you said, it was packed. And even on, middle of the weekday days, it was really, and I think the Rams really appreciated that. That's one of the main things when I'd be talking to personnel people or front office people, they'd always bring something like that up because it just was re-energizing and rejuvenating in a way after last year. And so to be able to not just see people enjoying themselves out there, but also the fact that the crowd would swell when something cool happened, or they'd boo the refs when a call was made, or, things like that you just really miss, that the players like genuinely feed off of and genuinely appreciate and enjoy. And you could just feel that. And the energy transfer back and forth that's one of the reasons why we love the sport. And so I just think that it was a really good feeling to be out there.
Yeah, it's great. And anytime there's a question about LA fanship with football, I mean, go to a 1 hour long practice at Rams.
I know, a walk through their jog through day. Like the bleachers were sold out during a jog through. And I was like, well, this is, I kind of had heard it was like, it's taken a while, obviously, to reestablish back in Southern California. And there's obviously so many other things going on here and traffic and all of that stuff. But at the same time, I mean, this group was determined and they were out in droves and they were energetic and excited. And like, I can't believe how many already had their new gear. Like it was just, I was like, oh my God, it was just really cool. And so it was definitely super, super fun to be in that environment, especially understanding how it's grown exponentially, I think, over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I know. There's new white jerseys that were just released. There was a lot of them out there. So
I saw so many of them.
I was like, good for you guys.
Yeah.
And we were talking pre-air about the late start time, how different it is. And it just hit me. Well, maybe it's just to give the fans more time to get there. They're like, oh,
maybe
4 hours. Here you go. So
didn't care about them getting home though.
No. Yeah. Good luck at work tomorrow, but at least you're here today.
Yeah.
So before we get into Centergate and all that craziness that, has gone on, I just am curious your thoughts. Obviously, you do great work there covering the team. So a couple players that you have kind of either stood out that you expected or maybe surprised you. Because I know for me, Justin Hollins was a guy that we didn't talk a ton about through the offseason. I've been big on him since he was with the Broncos, but seeing him with the ones almost all camp was awesome. And obviously he's on the depth chart as a one right now. But who are some guys that just kind of stood out to you in camp that maybe aren't the the Staffers, the Jacksons, the notable guys.
Yeah. And like, I'd be remiss without saying, like, the receivers showed they are exactly who we thought they were. I mean, if people didn't get a chance to go out and catch, no pun intended, catch some of what they were doing, like they looked exactly how you would expect them to look, as did, I think, we sort of expected what this secondary would probably look like, especially conceptually running a lot of the same things that they were last year. Obviously some new faces, but some really bright, young, talented players coming in on that secondary. So the guys who are like behind the guys, right? That's always who I like to look at. And I think that Obo Okoronkwo had just a phenomenal camp. He and Justin Hollins, I think, are going to be a really, really intriguing rush combination, because you can hit opposing offensive linemen with a little bit of a power speed or a speed power. And offensive linemen will talk about, like, it'll take 10 or 20 plays to get situated against one rusher on one side. Usually it's every down, it's teams who are very fortunate have every down rushers on both sides of the D line. The Rams have one in Leonard Floyd, who showed up and looks every bit of the part and all of that. But on the other side, they do not have an every down rusher. So they're basically, and I kind of wrote it in my article, is like, it's almost like when the Power Rangers assemble into this giant robot, like they're pulling traits from Obo that they like, from Justin that they like, and designing a rush package and a pass rush plan that utilizes those guys in a rotation. And it's not just because they don't have a 3-down rusher on that side. It certainly is a big part of it, but it's also because you're looking probably at a continued management situation with Terrell Lewis and his knee. He's a super talented player, but you are going to have to manage. If you keep him, you're going to have to manage that injury, and it just lingers in it and it reoccurs. And this is, of course, as we know, why he fell in the draft and everything. But he can be really productive on 15 to 20 snaps a game. What are you going to do with the rest of the time? Well, it actually kind of maybe works out to your favor, because now you have offensive linemen who cannot get comfortable against anybody because you're rotating these guys in. So it's all about when Justin Hollins and and Obo can get used to being out of rhythm and producing out of rhythm as pass rushers in a rotation. And at the same time, that helps sort of maximize, I think, or helps to at least try to maximize Terrell Lewis's availability. And then on the other side of the ball, really liked what I saw from Tristan Jackson. He was thrown into a really tough situation in terms of, hey, you show up the first day of actual field work, and the receiver who was supposed to be taking a certain amount of reps, is quarantining for 10 days because he has a COVID-19, goes on COVID-19 reserve. And so taking all of those reps. And then you also know that Deshaun Jackson's taking vet days here and there because they are also continuing to manage him to make sure he stays healthy. So Tristan Jackson's not only taking all of Tutu Atwell's reps to open camp, but then once Tutu comes back, is also managing Deshaun Jackson's reps when Deshaun is taking a vet day. And you could just feel the energy from him seizing those opportunities and not willing to cede any inch of the opportunity that he'd been given. And he really, really impressed me. Jacob Harris, who I'm really high on. And by the way, I get this question like all the time, and I know you know what I'm going to say, Ryan, right this second. Yep. Just because I'm high on Jacob Harris, it doesn't mean that it's at Bryson Hopkins' detriment. Bryson Hopkins showed up to camp this year and is built completely differently than he was last year. And to me, that shows that they have realigned his role. Again, no pun intended, because he seems like he'll be playing in line a little bit more, and certainly will be that big-bodied heavy hitter on special teams that they need, especially if a guy like Jacob Harris and Tyler Higbee are going to be working more into the passing game, because Matthew Stafford loves to throw to tight ends. So it's not at anybody's detriment. But Jacob Harris, once he fully kind of recovered from that core procedure that I reported the first week of camp that he had, he looked incredible. I mean, he's fitting in well. A couple of those red zone, just leaping acrobatic catches, pulling him in, just moves at a different speed than you would expect for someone of his size. And I really liked what and Darrell Henderson, I think, is an awesome player, but I was watching also guys behind him, and I really liked what Xavier Jones and Jake Funk were able to do. I think Xavier Jones, I've been trying to, make sure people are aware of him since last year, because he's a hard runner. He's a great runner. He's elusive. He's explosive. He can work in the passing game. But I think you also don't necessarily expect your rookie 7th round draft pick to show up the way that he did in terms of Jake Funk. And I think he might surprise some people this year in terms of what he's able to do.
Yeah. No, yeah. So much good stuff all there. A lot of good stuff, the points you made. I'll just quickly touch on each. So going back to the pass rushers, I've said many times, and so it's really refreshing to hear you say it, that not having a 3-down specialist on the other side is not necessarily a bad thing. I think a rotation is good. And like you said, managing those minutes for Terrell Lewis. We saw Obo last year have high production. A lot of people are like, oh, we'll just give him more reps because of that production. But maybe that's what they want from him, is just those high variable situations they can put him in and see him go to work, instead of being like, okay, you're on all 3 downs. And then Justin Hollins, obviously, who fits Raheem Morris's build to a T, exactly what he looks for. So it just makes sense that he's getting more reps out there. So I think that volume of having all 3 guys, not letting a tackle get comfortable, like you said, is refreshing. It's kind of in the same mindset of what McVay wants to do, just different terminologies versus what other coaches do in the NFL. So I think they're going to be good there, and it'll be fun to see how they do. Do you think, you don't have to do any reporting on this, but do you think we'll see any of those 3 in preseason?
You might see a little of Obo just because he did miss some of that time last year, but I would be more surprised to see either of those guys get like a high volume of reps, just because they are going to count on them. And Obo did have sort of the history with the injuries as well. You certainly will not see Terrell Lewis. I would be really surprised if you saw him just because they're continuing to manage the knee. So it's an opportunity for, some of these younger guys. Chris Garrett looks the part. I mean, I think he just needs to practice against pros a little bit. But he absolutely looks the total part of a professional pass rusher. Like, he looks like he does it for a living, which he now does. So he just needs to practice against it. Works out. Yeah. So he just needs to practice against pros a little bit more. And then Justin Lawler seems like he'll be the guy who will back up Leonard Floyd on the other side. Really sort of started to show that as camp progressed. So I think you'll see a lot of those guys. And then, it's going to be interesting. There's young guys who are interior defensive linemen who they are built the way that the Rams like to develop their guys who, if they were in a 4-man front, you might call them a 3 technique. You don't really call them that in this front that they run, but they can align in a variety of ways. Ernest Brown was working some with the outside linebackers and some with the interior defensive linemen. So I think you'll see a lot of him in the preseason as well. In terms of the other guys, like, you're going to see a lot of Tristan Jackson. I would guarantee it. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams kept 7 receivers to include him on the roster. And they've done crazier things, as I'm sure we'll get to in a minute, but, and I think you're going to see a lot of young guys. Bronte Harris really came along as the latter days of camp picked up and the pads came on and things got more physical. Troy Warner, really, I kept hearing coaches praise him when he would do certain things, move in the right places. Ernest Jones had a great camp. You'll see him a lot in the preseason. I think you'll see probably Traven Howard a lot in the preseason too, just to get his feet back under him and in a live situation. And guys like Kareem Orr, it's, I think you'll see heavy Jake Funk, heavy Xavier Jones. You're not going to see any Darrell Henderson, that's for sure. Nope. But yeah, I think you'll see all those guys I mentioned, plus a few more to keep an eye on. I think you'll see a lot of those guys as they open this week against the other Los Angeles Chargers. That's going to be a fun one.
Oh, can't wait. We'll be there. So can't wait. Good job with all those names too. Cause I get, when I'm writing, it's fine. When I'm talking, the fact that they drafted a Bobby Brown, an Ernest Jones, and two Ernests, two Browns.
Yeah.
Ernest Brown, Bobby Brown, and Ernest Jones.
Yeah.
So yeah, see, I already messed it up. So I know who they are, but when I'm saying, I'm like, okay, which one I'm talking about? So good job. That's all I'm going to say. Good job to you. Ernest Jones yesterday, by the way, had a pick at the goal line, didn't he?
Yeah, he was on a short field. They were playing like goal line red zone, doing some situational stuff, and he ran it all the way back.
Yeah.
He's gotten his hands on the ball several times, whether it was against the first team offense because they repped ones versus twos and twos versus ones through most of the periods of camp. Not only is that a sort of mental stress kind of thing for both sides, but it also helps keep people safe, reduces the risk of injury because ones versus ones, you tend to go at a higher pace. You tend to be more physical, more competitive. So I think it's a really interesting tactic and a smart thing that they do. So also like, that's kind of what I saw. I kept trying to, I know I probably sound like a broken record. I kept trying to put it in my stories and on Twitter, just repeat, like ones versus twos versus ones, because sometimes people would be like, Ernest Jones picked off Matthew Stafford, first team linebacker confirmed, because obviously Matthew Stafford is a starting quarterback, but it really was not. That's not the case. It's just that he was performing really, it's still good news because he was performing really well against the first team defense or first team offense. It's just that he wasn't playing on the first team defense, but still, I mean, I think I'm an optimist. So I think that's still a really a net positive, honestly, all around.
Yeah, no, I am too. So absolutely. Yeah. That's a good way to put it too, that it's for like injury concerns and stuff like that. So I haven't heard that before. When I played ball, that was some stuff our coaches would say too, when we would do stuff like that. So it's also to get some of those young guys high competition against, the starters, get them out there and see how they do in those high pressure situations. So two big topics we'll talk about, Jourdan, before we get you out of here. I talked about it on my last show a little bit just because it happened on whatever day, all these days blend together, but the joint practice with Cowboys and Rams, you were there in Oxnard. So just touch briefly on it. I know, no Dak because he's been injured, but just how did the defense look? How did the offense look? What was the vibe like in Oxnard? What was the turnout? A lot of Cowboys fans here in SoCal, regardless of how great the Rams and Chargers are doing here. There's always going to be a lot of Cowboys fans because there was no teams here for 20 plus years. But what was the practice like up there in Oxnard?
Yeah, it was good. And I saw a lot of Rams fans there, actually. One of the security guards was like, wow, I heard him talking to his buddy and he was like, wow, there's a lot more Rams fans here, even though this is Cowboys camp and they have a fan fest and all of that. So that was cool to see. Didn't see, I think all of the fans started bonding together collectively because two fans walked in and one was wearing an Eagles jersey and the other was wearing a 49ers jersey. But yeah, so it was funny because the fan base is kind of bonded collectively over seeing those two walk in. And it was a good day. It was hot. It was really hot. I think the Rams, they come in and, you're expecting it to be a grind. It's a padded practice, obviously, against an opponent. Pretty competitive, couple skirmishes, as I know everybody saw and dissected, kind of hilariously. Yeah. And everyone I'm sure has their opinions about everything that happened. But, the fact that Sean McVay wasn't concerned about it kind of tells me everything I need to know about what the situation was. And then, the Rams were like adamantly not going to show anything on a live broadcasted practice. They were like, their offense was on the far field, first of all, away from most of what the broadcast, my understanding, most of what the broadcast cameras were showing. And they were running a lot of scripted stuff. And then on the other side, the Rams were adamantly not going to show what they're going to do with their defense, which is run it very similarly to how they did last year. But the funny part, the way you could tell that they were not going to budge was they stuck Jalen Ramsey into the nickel and they did not move him. And Mike McCarthy threw CeeDee Lamb on the outside, Michael Gallup on the outside. And, in my head, I'm thinking like, is he trying to get Jalen to move to the outside to see if they're going to rotate him like they did last year? And the Rams were not biting on it. And David Long drew the short straw on that in that regard, because I don't think in a normal game he will be asked to rep after rep after rep, like 30 times against, two of the more talented receivers, CeeDee especially, one of the more talented receivers in the league. And so, but then, he got a couple back. He had a long day. He got a couple back near the end. A couple of the guys that I mentioned before, Kareem Moore especially, had a good day on the second team. Linebackers look great. All three of the starting linebackers, or the guys who will rotate in the starting rotation in terms of Kenny Young, Micah Kiser, and Troy Reeder, They all got into the backfield on some really physical plays. Kenny Young is especially having a phenomenal camp, and I think he's going to take a lead role here moving into the season, because I doubt he'll play much in the preseason. And so they looked really, really good, really physical along the line of scrimmage on the defensive side. And then obviously, as we know, that was really the first day that Brian Allen moved to center, pretty much full time, and now is sort of trending toward holding that down, for the start of the season.
Well, that will lead into our final topics. We can't have you on and not talk about it. Centergate, it went on all off season. It's been Corbett. Minicamp, OTAs, all
like I've seen like almost every, in the spring we get 2 practices, 1 practice a week, but I know they weren't repping. They were repping Austin Corbett the entire time. The entire time. And
McVay even said that the entire time. Like, he wasn't shy about it. He was the guy. All of a sudden it happens at the joint practice. And then since then, and you reported on Monday and Tuesday that Brian Allen was a heavy dosage. So 2 questions to get you out of here on. One, is that more of, and I have my opinion, but I want to obviously hear from you, but is that more of a Corbett struggling at center, or more of a Bobby Evans struggling at guard, and they feel more comfortable with Corbett at center, the lesser of 2 evils, blah, 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 something like that? And 2, to make fans feel a little better, how has Brian Allen overall, in your eyes, looked at center when he has been with the 2s or playing with Walford, or then the last 2.5 days at center?
Yeah, and the pads went on, and in some cases you see small changes, but nothing usually this drastic. This was a drastic change, and a lot of it, and I can actually answer both of those questions at once, because this was a lot of things at one time. And that I am certain of. Not only was it that Austin Corbett, they determined, is the best right guard on the team, which I think some people maybe could have said before that, right? Yeah. Like, not trying to sound like a jerk, but I think, yes, he is the best right guard on the team. It's not a detriment to Bobby Evans, who I think is a talented player. But you also, again, you predicated most of your decision-making along the offensive line in free agency and in the draft on the fact that you were moving Austin Corbett to center, right? And then thus putting Bobby Evans in at right guard. But you also were doing so not having seen those 2 play the position in pads, nor seeing Brian Allen play the position in pads. So pads go on leading up to the Cowboys scrimmage. They finally got a chance to see really what people look like in that scrimmage, so you have a 2 days in pads where you can kind of get a feel for it. Then you have the scrimmage, which is also in pads against a live opponent. And so you're really starting to see, how things are shaking out and who's performing where and what guys look like physically for real. Right. And so I think it's a lot of things at once. I think it was Brian Allen is playing well at center and he looks stronger. To me, I was not present for the 2019 season. I know there are so there were some issues there, but he looks strong to me. He looks like he's ready and willing to just get down in the dirt against whoever his guy is. And he has attacked this sort of position battle that was not a position battle for a long time. He treated it that way, and he attacked it with such tenacity that I think it really impressed Sean McVay specifically. Yeah. And so that is a truth at one time, as well as it is less of a risk to play in their minds. To me, it is less of a risk to play Brian Allen, who you drafted to ultimately take over at center one day, less of a risk to play him there than it is to not play Austin Corbett at guard. You know what I mean? So I think you just you find that Austin Corbett's your best right guard. Brian Allen is among then who is left. Brian Allen is, of course, your best option at center. And at this point, they're going to be in pads 2 more days this week, and then they're going to be in and out of pads at certain times through the next couple of weeks. And that's how much time you have. So whether or not it works, I think you're looking at Brian Allen as your starting center to open the season. Of course, I'm not going to have any definites at this point because that worked out well the first time. So not going to have any definites. Yeah. And whether it's official or unofficial or whatever, this is the way that it's trending. So I think you're looking at that to open the season. I'd be surprised at this point if it didn't continue to trend this way.
Yeah. I'm curious what we'll see in preseason, because obviously McVay does not play starters, but with this now all of a sudden being this reversal, 180 reversal. I'm curious. I don't think we will, but I wonder if we'll see Allen out there getting any snaps at center. And we had Whitworth on a few months ago, and he said he plays center if he needed to. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah, but I'm rooting for Allen.
He could do anything. Andrew Whitworth could like build a rocket in his garage if he really wanted to. So
easily. So, but you want your best 5 guys out there, and if they feel right now those are their best 5 in whatever position they line up, we'll see how it works out. But we will obviously keep our eyes on that, and you will, because you are the best at doing that. You've been all about the offensive line, so we appreciate that. This is another conversation another day, but I'm so curious those conversations behind closed doors with Aaron Kromer, and if any of this is why he's no longer with the Rams, but that's another conversation. So, Jourdan, you're the best. I know it's busy, so thank you for taking the time, jumping on with us for a few talking about your thoughts with camp. We'll have you on again throughout the rest of the preseason and into the season, and hopefully grab a beer with you soon. We still got to get you some Brewery X. We got to get that out to you.
I know. I've loved all the recommendations. I know you sent me a ton of recommendations as well, and I'm eager to try all of those out. But thank you so much for having me. Thanks for everything you do, especially for Los Angeles football. Really excited to get going here. It's starting to feel a little more real than it was 3 weeks ago. So pretty excited. And thanks again for having me. And thanks to everyone who reads and subscribes and follows along.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, finally we're here. But yeah, check out Jourdan on Twitter and obviously at The Athletic for all the best Rams coverage that you can get from her. So thanks, Jourdan. Appreciate you. Have a good day. We'll talk soon, okay? All right. Always a pleasure to have Jourdan on. We were going to have her on a lot throughout the season. So Rams fans, be excited for that. We're working out something with her to be her. I don't know if we'll do weekly. I don't know if she wants to do that kind of commitment, but we'll have her on a lot. A couple beat writers will rotate through. Our own great beat writers, Ryan Anderson, Chauncey Talese, Alejandro Avila, Josh Kolek. We got a lot of great Rams writers. Ian Van Roy, don't want to forget anyone, but we'll have them rotating as well to give their thoughts. So big thanks to Jourdan. Thank you so much. Before we get into Gilbert, hang out for a minute, guys. Get through these promos. Got some awesome partners we're working with. And I know people skip past these, but I think they're good products that you would actually like. First, we got to start with my friends at Manscaped. All of you guys across the galaxy, not just in LA anymore, across the galaxy from Australia to Houston. Is there a pube problem or a hair problem, a grooming problem? If so, our friends at Manscaped have cleared you for takeoff with their 4th generation and brand new Lawnmower 4.0. Kick your pubes or whatever hair you don't want to the next planet with the Performance Package 4.0. The orbits in your pants will feel like you're in zero gravity when you use the best tools for the job from the leaders in male grooming. Join the, hear this, 2 million men. You heard that right. 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get your rocket ready for takeoff by going to manscaped.com. Use my code LAFB20 for 20% off and free shipping. Once again, that's 20% off and free shipping by going to manscaped.com with the code LAFB20. 20% off, free shipping, manscaped.com, LAFB20 for a clean trinity and beyond your space balls. Well, thank you. They got great copywriters there at Manscaped. Maybe some of you hate it. I think overall it's pretty creative. They do a pretty good job with their copywriting. So newest sponsor that is joining the LA Football Podcast is a company by the name of Balance 7. So I don't know if you've heard, but apparently former NBA player Lamar Odom actually may be returning to play some professional basketball. Not here in the States, but in Spain. Spain's got some competitive leagues out there. Read in press relief how he started taking a pH balancing alkaline supplement called Balance 7. And that's what helped him bounce back from his hospitalization back in 2015. So he even said, quote, "I have an enormous amount of energy, which is good for me. It's important when working out. I always need energy to level up." I think that's fair to say we all would like. So apparently Balance 7's working for him. Cool thing is I've got a promotion running with Balance 7 right now, where if you go to their website, balance the number 7, so balance7.com, and use the code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV at checkout, you'll receive a free 4-ounce bottle of My Smooth Skin with any purchase of Balance 7 products. That product retails at $14, $13.99. So I'd say it's worth it. It's free, $14. Again, head to Balance 7, the number 7, balance7.com. Use my promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV at checkout to get in on the promotion. I know I will, and if it worked for him, it can certainly work for you too. All right, so make sure to check both of those great products out. With that being said, let's get into our Chargers portion of the show. As I mentioned, Gilbert Manzano, beat writer for the OC Register and the LA Daily News, and co-host of the Compas on the Beat podcast. Here it is with Gilbert. All right, Chargers fans, thanks for sticking around. Got the next part of the show to talk Chargers. Last 2 days of camp since FanFest. So excited to have one of the best in the business, one of the top beat writers in the game. He is also the co-host of the Compas on the Beat right here on the LA Football Network, writer for the Orange County Register and LA Daily News. Gilbert Manzano, I won't give you a what's up, bro, because I'm sure you're sick of it. So what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Thank you for that, Ryan. I'm kind of tired of Fernando right now, especially nowadays. I see him every single day at Chargers training camp, but it's good to be back on the show with you, LAFB podcast. As people know, we kind of joined forces on Compas on the Beat, LAFB. So it's about time we kind of do these collabs and kind of cross promote our different podcasts.
Yeah, man. I was literally, when I texted you earlier today, I was like, I don't think you've been on since you guys joined our network. I think we've tried a few times, and obviously everyone's super busy. So I know I've been on your show in the beginning, but so good to have you on. So before we get into Chargers, just how's obviously I see all the time. I think Compas, you guys are killing it. Having great guests. Show's been super fun. You guys have added your own flavor and flair, but how has it been in the podcasting world? Now that you've been doing it for what, 4 or 5 months?
Yeah. Well, actually more, like 6 months. We started in March. It's very time consuming. It's a lot of learning this podcast world. Me being old school sports writer from a newspaper, this is all new to me. Being comfortable in front of the mic and camera. Obviously, Fernando is really comfortable with that because he's a talker, as you know. He loves to talk. he loves the spotlight. For me, I'm kind of more behind the scenes. So getting this kind of, different, tool in the toolbox and being versatile. As we know nowadays in training camp, the more you can do, the better to make the roster. So for podcasting, to add it to my resume is pretty cool. But you mentioned the guests, just talking to different people and getting to know people that way. And also talking football, but getting to know people that people whose work I respect or players I admire on the field, and kind of getting to know them from a different point of view. I feel like podcast is more laid back, getting to know some of these stories. It's kind of a different way to kind of distribute reporting in a different angle in a fun environment. So overall, I've been liking it. It's a different pace. But I'm glad that we started it in March because now we kind of know what to do for the regular season of football. And I feel like we're kind of picking up steam and people know about us. And we were at Chargers training camp. People were always saying, "What's up, brother Fernando?" Calling us compas, making fun of me with my feud with Dan and Dago. So overall, I think people are liking it. And I like that people are going to see the different side of us.
Oh, yeah. You guys have a battle coming up, don't you? Some kind of battle royale, you and Dan and Dago or something?
Yeah, you know what? I guess it's kind of promotional week. The fight's 1 week away, so I'm on your show to promote it. Watch Compas on the Beat, August 17th, the big showdown with Dan and Dago, who is our promo reader, who people kind of, for some reason, like. I don't know. He's a little too much for me.
It's a mixed bag.
I guess, but some people like that. It's kind of like in wrestling, people like kind of the bad guy, the villain. And he's kind of playing that role. But August 17th, I'll expose Dan and Dago in a fun way.
There you go.
We'll have fun with it, talk some football, and get into some arguments.
So last shameless plug for those that don't know. So what is this? You guys aren't slapping on boxing gloves, are you? What does this battle entail? Is it a battle of words? Is it?
Yeah.
What's going to go down?
That's it. It's the battle of words. We're not going to go as crazy as people on this Undisputed or ESPN. And they kind of get carried away.
Yeah.
I don't know about Dan and Dago. I've never really actually, had a full-on conversation with him because his takes are crazy. They're wild. But we'll have Fernando in the middle, referee, kind of around the horn style, give him points to which argument he likes better. We're going to talk about, he's a big country music guy. I'm going to say why country is terrible, and I prefer reggaeton music, the Latin flavor. We're going to get into that. Alcohol, I like tequila. He likes whiskey. He's probably the biggest supporter of Tim Tebow. I am not really sure he's going to make the team, so we're going to argue about that. Just random topics, and I think people really like that about our show. We kind of get random. We're going to give you the football inside, but we give you different random topics, like Fernando talking about movies all the time. And it's funny because I'm like, Fernando, nobody cares about your movies. Let's talk football. But people like it, and I'm like, all right, fine. I was wrong there. Just give them more movie reviews, and that's what I like about our show. And I think having Dan and Dago adding that different touch or different kind of character really gives another element for our podcast.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm pumped. I'm excited to see it. So August, you said 12th or 17th?
17, Tuesday. We'll release it
August
Tuesday
17th.
morning.
Tuesday. My dates are all out. Yeah. August 17th. I'm excited. That'll be fun. So Fernando playing the Tony Reali, Jenny Taft role, I guess, if you will. We'll give Jenny Taft a shout out since she had that smackdown earlier today on Skip Bayless. I don't know if you saw that clip floating around yet. Yeah, in regards to like Mike McCarthy, we won't talk, we'll look it up, but touche to Jenny Taft for calling out Skip, which isn't hard to do nowadays. But yeah, so check that out. Compas on the Beat. We'll plug it again. You can find it anywhere on podcasts, anywhere on YouTube, Compas on the Beat or LAFB Network, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. So with that being said, though, Gilbert, let's get into some Chargers talk here, since that's what you do best. Do a lot of other things well too, but I think that's what you do best, at least in terms of writing and whatnot. And I know Chargers fans certainly appreciate it. So FanFest, I talked about it, but let me just ask you. So we already talked about it, covered on the show, but what were your overall thoughts of FanFest? You don't have to get into really playing stuff, but just seeing fans in the field. I know you've been to SoFi many, many times. All last year, the reporters actually got to be there. But what was it like seeing some fans in the stands and just the environment there?
Yeah. So not too long ago, the Chargers released like their season tickets number, and they're pretty good numbers. I think they're at least for over 45,000 season tickets in Los Angeles, which is not kind of crazy because it's a new stadium and people in LA, want to see football. But then the thing is like, okay, are Chargers fans buying these season tickets, or is it opposing teams, fan bases that want to sell the tickets on a secondary market or come watch their team in Los Angeles? As you know, Ryan, there was no football here for about 25 years in Los Angeles. Now there's two teams. That's why you started the LAFB network, because there's a lot of football here to cover. But a lot of fans, went elsewhere, like the Cowboys or 49ers or whatever, the Raiders. And so it's kind of a mixed bag for the Chargers here in Los Angeles. But I think Sunday at the scrimmage, you kind of got a preview of that fan base is growing. There was a lot of Chargers fans there. And you always hear the tired jokes, like there's no fans out there for the Chargers. And you hear over and over again. But I think Sunday was a preview of like, okay, they're making some headway here. They're getting a footing in Los Angeles. Obviously, Justin Herbert has a big deal or a big part in that. But having a brand new stadium, doing great on social media, and, obviously you got to win games, but I think they have good attraction here. Building that fan base, and Sunday was a great preview. And I know it's kind of bad for Michael Badgley, but when he got dropped down with the Boo Birds after missing field goals, that shows people care, and that shows there's a lot of people interested in this team, and they don't want it to be ruined by missed field goals like a year ago. You want Badgley to kind of figure it out, but hearing that the boos, it's kind of like, okay, there is a fan base here. I don't know where these tired jokes are coming from, but who knows? It's gonna be a different story when there's actually an opposing team, like the Cowboys coming to town, the Raiders. If you kind of get that 50-50, it's kind of like, and I'll give you a wrestling analogy because Fernando loves it. It's kind of like with John Cena. People are like, let's go Cena sucks. So if you're at least 50-50, I think that's great for the Chargers, because it happens in every NFL stadium. People want to see their team be in town. Watch them in Las Vegas with the Raiders, watch them in Miami with the Dolphins, watch them in New York. So it happens everywhere. But if you're at least competing with the opposing fans, that's big for the Chargers. But it's going to be sold out, I think, every game, because it is the first year with fans at SoFi. Now the thing is, like, are there going to be a lot of opposing fans, or will the Chargers do their part when it comes to rooting?
Yeah, I love that you say that, Gilbert, because I think that's a lot of people think it needs, like, in order to be showing success and growth, it needs to be majority Charger fans every single game this year. But I think 50-50 is a good goal because it is so normal. I mean, 2019, I talked about a lot. There was this is the Rams, obviously not the Chargers, but there was a Rams-Falcons game in Atlanta. And at that game in Atlanta, there was at least 50%, maybe more, Rams fans than Falcons fans. But it was never brought up. No one talked about it. I've been to Bears and Broncos games in Chicago. The Bears have a great following. 50-50 Broncos fans there. I've been all over the country. It happens, other than maybe a select few teams, but it just gets so under a microscope here, especially with the Chargers, where they're doing a slow build. It wasn't going to happen overnight. Anyone that thought that doesn't know how these things work in this market. So it's good to see that they're getting some traction. We all know that, but it's good to see now nationally, maybe they're starting to get some traction. And then one thing I thought, and maybe, I don't know if you noticed this, but I was talking to Dan, who was there as well, Dan Wolkenstein, a lot of, because everyone talks about how San Diego like hates the Chargers now. There's obviously a salty fan base there still. Like, we'll give them their credit. But there's a lot of San Diego fans that still like the Chargers and are going to travel up. And a lot of them came up to this practice game. And I remember Dan saying he was going back down the 5 to get the Carlsbad, and it took him hours from the traffic from people at the game from San Diego. That's good to see.
Yeah, no, definitely. Even on Saturdays for Chargers training camp, when they have the most fans, our good buddy Adrian Garcia Marquez, who's the voice of the Chargers in Spanish, he takes a microphone and he's always welcoming fans to the microphone. And he asked them, "Where are you from?" And a lot of them say San Diego. So yeah, they are following the team from San Diego here in Los Angeles, but it's pretty split though, and it's rough for San Diego. I get it. They lost their favorite football team, so it's a little awkward there. But there are still a lot of San Diego people who really support this team because I see kind of like this awkwardness where like a lot of them are Padres fans as well too. Like they like the Chargers, but they're Padres fans. Some like the Dodgers. So it's kind of like a rivalry. Like you're Chargers fans, but you hate different baseball teams. So it's a little awkward. But I think, like you said, it takes time to kind of build a fan base in a new city. And I'm not trying to give a lot of credit to the Chargers just yet because, again, I got to see it when fans are in the stands. But I think they're making progress, and that's what you wanted. The first goal is to sell season tickets, which they did. Now it's to make sure the right people are buying these season tickets, and we'll find that out more come the regular season. But so far, they got a break with Justin Herbert. He really is the face of the franchise. With Philip Rivers, people loved him, but he was San Diego's quarterback. And as you know, Ryan, in Los Angeles, it's all about something new, fresh, trendy, new stars. Los Angeles love that. And Justin Herbert is new. And he so far is living up to the hype and doing great. And that results in jersey sales and ticket sales.
Yeah, he's absolutely become the new face of this team, this organization, and it's fun seeing like the battle between him and Stafford for the face of LA in terms of quarterbacking. And he's lived up to it in every measure of the way, and even in his quieter, softer demeanor, he's still like a fun personality. Like he's not boring. He's just not like loud and outspoken like Baker Mayfield, but he does have a personality, and we see it at training camp. I know you guys are usually busy interviewing, but since I'm usually there in the fans, like seeing him every practice, basically signed footballs in the very first practice. I think it may have been you that asked him about it afterwards, but going and actually like giving high fives when he wasn't allowed to. But I thought that was so good for the fan base at their face of their franchise. He said he didn't know about it. I'm saying, you know what? He's probably just like, screw it. I'll pay the fine. Like I want to go give these guys credit for coming out.
No, definitely. You could tell Justin Herbert really is appreciative of the Chargers fans. And you could tell that he really missed them a year ago. And just imagine that rookie year he had with a bunch of Chargers fans around. Like he missed that. And I think he's really eager now to meet, Chargers fans, just to put it out there. He's vaccinated. He feels, secure with that. And he's okay with that. But, come games now, you got to make sure you're a little more careful. It's kind of like when he's playing games and he's scrambling, and he takes a big hit. He could take it, but he's a big body. But let's avoid that. And I think the Chargers are telling him, let's chill out with that. But he's at least throwing the footballs to the fans, throwing some shirts, and he's having fun. And you mentioned it, Ryan. I kind of miss him so because my back is turned to the whole fan interaction because I'm doing interviews. I just saw a video where Herbert was doing field goals for fans. I'm like, where was I for that to watch field goals? And I totally missed it. So it's bad timing, but you could tell Herbert's really finding his footing, and he's really comfortable, as a person, as a leader. And you can really tell that Herbert and Derwin James are the biggest leaders on this team right now.
100%. Yeah. Which you love to see. You'd be like, no offense, Joe Lombardi, but I got to go see Herbert kick field goals. That's a little more entertaining right now.
I should have, right?
Yeah. So off day on Monday after FanFest, which was Sunday, and then back on training camp for Tuesday, and then now Wednesday. So this morning, you said pre-air, and by all indications that we saw, because there was really nothing going on Twitter from any beat writers, pretty melodic day on Tuesday. So I guess we can touch more on Wednesday. Let's start with this. T. Billy was back in practice, back in pads. How was he looking? How was his health indications? Break it down a little bit for us about T. Billy and how he looked today.
Yeah, he looks fine, but he's not making the plays he was the first week of training camp. I think maybe he's trying to get back his footing and maybe not rush it out there too much. But he hasn't had the connections just yet. I guess yesterday was kind of a slow day, so maybe it doesn't count. But today with the pads on, he didn't really have too many big plays. But I think that first week, he really showed a lot of people how much he's improved as a player. And, I'll write about this in the Orange County Register and maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow. I spoke to wide receivers coach Chris Beatty, and I asked him about Jalen Guyton and Tyron Johnson, who kind of broke out. Maybe not broke out, but they made the roster and made an impact, as wide receivers, as a speed threat, stretch the field. And Chris Beatty was like, it's okay to be one-dimensional just to get a spot on the roster. That's what Jalen and Tyron did. Now for this next year to possibly break out even more, you got to develop as a route runner, be more than just a specialist. And I think that's where Tyron Johnson kind of, really showed that as a route runner, the start of training camp. And he's like, okay, maybe this guy is the legit number 3 wide receivers. And he was kind of running away with the competition. But then he got banged up. I think it was a foot or ankle because he was making so many plays. He landed awkwardly one of the deep connections with Justin Herbert, and it was out for a week. But in that week out, rookie Josh Palmer kind of took advantage of the snaps and opportunities and emerged and made it a real competition again between Tyron and Josh Palmer. And even Jalen Guyton hasn't done as well as those two guys, but he's another one who was kind of a specialist a year ago, but he's got to improve with his hands and catching balls and route running. And that's what Chris Beatty told me. Like, okay, these guys got to show it that they could do more because it's competitive for this wide receiver 3 job. But that first week, Tyron T. Billy, as people know him, has become a fan favorite because he's making a lot of plays. But, he's now playing catch-up, so it's going to make this competition even more intriguing.
Yeah, he's definitely become a fan favorite, which is, cool to see. Obviously, when you have the big plays that he had last year, but even just what he did in camp, and I want to say it was day 2 or 3 when he had that. It was probably a sack on Justin Herbert, but had that like 60-yard plus touchdown bomb and just looked good. So, and I think Guyton had a drop in the FanFest scrimmage, if I'm not mistaken, at SoFi. So things you don't like to see, but take a shot if you've seen it before. Quickly, just keeping it with the wide receiver room, deep room. I've been super impressed by a lot of these guys. And some guys, and Joe Reed and KJ Hill, it's been a mixed bag with their reps, not necessarily looking bad, just not really seeing them in the action.
Yeah.
In your opinion, not necessarily reporting, but just maybe your personal opinion, any shot the Chargers keep 7, or do you think this is a 6-man room? Because 7's deep. Most teams don't do it. But with how deep this unit is, I don't see many guys making it to the practice squad. I feel like they'll be snatched up.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because you got to pick and choose where you want to get greedy at positions because running back is just as competitive. And do you want to keep 3 running backs or 4? Same thing, wide receivers. You go 6 or 7. I think last year it was 6. Like T. Billy didn't make the roster a year ago. We forget that he came up from the practice squad. So, there's an avenue there where you can stash guys and hopefully they kind of emerge because injuries don't happen. And I don't want to jinx the Chargers. Maybe I shouldn't even talk about it. But, so far they're healthy and maybe that's a good problem to have. So that's why it's competitive. But you never know. Some guy's going to go on the practice squad and you earn an opportunity that way. But, right now, the feel I'm getting, if they do stick to 6 wide receivers, it's got to come down between KJ Hill and Joe Reed, the 2 guys from last year's draft. Like, they're not really, standing out like T. Billy and Jalen Guyton. Or Guyton is kind of struggling too, but he proved himself a year ago that he gets open. If you could get open in the NFL with a big arm quarterback like Justin Herbert, and you want to stretch the field, Jalen Guyton has a spot on this team. He's got to work on the drop balls, and if he does that, he's okay. But Palmer, Guyton, and Tyron, I think, are okay. You still have Jason Moore, and even Austin Pro has kind of made some noise. So it's going to be tough there. And I think, if you release, Jason and Austin, you can always get them back. But there could be intrigue for Joe Reed or KJ Hill, and somebody wants them on their team. So you're going to have to really decide between those 2 guys for me. And maybe for Joe Reed could be the versatility that you could use him in jet sweeps and all these crazy motions. But he's not making the plays yet. He's not really figuring that out. And again, going back to my story that I'm going to have with Chris Beatty is like, do you follow the format for Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton with Joe Reed? How about you focus on one thing first, being a deep threat, because Joe Reed is also pretty explosive. So maybe make him that deep threat. And then after that, you could kind of, unleash the other kind of tools in his bag. So if they feel like Joe Reed has a potential, and they'll choose him. But KJ is so polished as a route runner, but he's not really making the plays like he did a year ago in training camp. So it's going to be really tough for those 2 guys, for the Chargers to kind of decide to keep 7.
Really tough. I'm excited to read that article, Gilbert, because that'll be fascinating hearing from the actual wide receiver coach and what he thought. So last thing on this group, I don't know if you've seen my tweets, listened to the show at all, but I've been huge on the Austin Prohl train. I call it
I've seen it.
Call it the Proler Express. I've been big on him, just his ability in the return game. And I know the first depth chart come out, and he wasn't the starter in the return game. Just my opinion. I think the first depth charts are basically a chalk. Like they're not really don't mean much. Really. So I know people read into it, fans do, but for the coaching staff, it's just something to get out there. They really don't necessarily think. So to me, I still think Prohl is the number one guy. Just from reps I've seen, he's always been the guy starting. So from your eyes, though, what have you seen from Prohl? Do you think he is a guy that has a legit shot to make this roster, or am I just blowing smoke on a quote unquote my guy that I hope does?
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you're a specialist and as a punt return, but you're not really bringing it as a wide receiver, it's hard to keep Austin Prohl. Like, he was making a bunch of plays, with Justin Herbert in training camp. Then you want to keep him. But you might be right though, Ryan. I do like Austin Prohl as a punt returner. He has a sure-handed. He's sure-handed. Has some, maybe not explosive speed, but he has some wiggle room and he kind of makes plays there. But he's reliable and punt. And a year ago, just being reliable was hard for the Chargers. We could get into the special teams overall, but they kind of have a good problem to have because they have so many candidates, and Darius Swinton is not really revealing anything. I asked him today, Darius, it's been 2 weeks now. Give me a feel for the returner job because there's like 20 guys competing. And he's like, not yet. We need preseason games. I'm like, all right, fine, Darius there. But it's gonna be tough for Austin Prohl. He is kind of making a splash, and you never know. There's always a couple surprises in training camp. But if he's making those plays in in preseason games, starting with the Rams on Saturday, he might make it hard for them, and maybe he's become reliable in the return game or at least punt return. But I think for right now, it might be KJ Hill, leading that charge. But again, he has kind of the same problem. If you can't make it as a wide receiver, you can't just be on the roster as a specialist. So if Joe Reed's, he's more of a kick return actually, but like say maybe Tyron Johnson or Jalen Guyton take that punt returner job, they're doing it as a wide receiver. So perfect. Have one of those guys do it instead of, taking up a space for a specialist. So, if KJ can stand out in the preseason, I think that punt returner job is his, but he's got to do it as a wide receiver as well. But if he doesn't, then I think maybe the second guy in that running for at least punt return is it's an Austin Prohl. Kick return, I think, is between Nazir Adderley and Joe Reed. But it's a lot of guys. I seen Justin Jackson taking reps there. So they're competing, and I still don't have kind of an idea for how that's going to shake out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's going to have to be a guy, not necessarily a starter by any means, but a guy that can be a role either on offense or defense, and doesn't limit them if they need to use him if God forbid anyone gets injured or whatnot. And so we'll see who really breaks out in that. I feel like I've seen Prohl make some plays with the 2s and 3s, and he had a touchdown pass in 11 or in 7-on-7s from Justin Herbert a few days ago. Toe tapping on the pylon. So, but we've seen KJ Hill do a few. Haven't seen Joe Reed do much. So that's kind of the part where he needs to. And I had someone on, Gilbert, and this is getting long winded, but it's okay.
No, you're good.
I had someone on that was like, well, maybe they're just hiding Joe Reed. They don't want to show too much to fans. I'm like, I get that if it's legit Percy Harvin, but you got to see what you have in Joe Reed because we don't know what you have in him yet. This is a brand new coaching staff. You don't hide a guy that you haven't seen play it down yet. So
that's what they said a year ago too with Joe Reed. Like, maybe they're hiding him, and it turned out like I actually now that I remember, I don't think he had a single catch in the regular season. Looking at the stats, so I'll say this about Joe Reed. They are trying with him. I think it was yesterday. He had a few reps with Justin Herbert at quarterback. So maybe they're trying to give him a chance, but he just hasn't really stood out yet. But he is getting opportunity to kind of prove himself with Herbert on the field.
Yeah, good to see. So let's move over to defense, and we can talk more specifically about today. I thought the unit overall for camps I've been at, the defense has, won the day, if you will, against the offense, at least in red zone drills and stuff like that. And then I thought at the open scrimmage at SoFi, the offense kind of took it to the defense a little bit and made some big plays. How the defense bounced back today? How was Mark Webb back after being banged up a little bit? Talk to me a little bit about the defense.
Yeah, no Mark Webb today. I think yesterday he tried to give it a go, and maybe he might have felt some kind of, maybe his hamstring wasn't ready, and he went back. Well, he went out of the team drill, so today he wasn't in practicing, so maybe he's not ready yet. You don't want to mess with those hamstrings. Get those things take time.
Yeah,
like you feel like you're okay, but then you get back on the field and you kind of feel a tweak. So he wasn't out there, but in terms of winning the day, I think that the defense got the best of Herbert and Chase Daniel and Easton Stick, because I think they counted 3 interceptions, one against each quarterback. I want to say the Herbert one was Michael Davis, Vato.
That's right.
2-minute drill, and it ended quickly. That 2-minute drill, they're like in the 20-yard backed up, and Michael Davis got I think there was pressure from Joey Bosa, so that defense working together. But then Herbert came back, and he went from his 20-yard line all the way. They didn't score. They got to the 2-yard line, I think a 2 or 3, and they kind of got stuffed there on a Joshua Kelly, or run for a touchdown that it wasn't counted, but they got a field goal. I think it was like a halftime 2-minute drill, so you want points, going into halftime. So Herbert came back there, but you're seeing it every single day, battling Staley's defense. I see Staley in the walkie-talkie, talking to Derwin James, and that's been pretty fun to kind of watch him go at it against Joe Lombardi and Justin Herbert. So, you kind of see these young quarterbacks and the beat writers really assess what's going on, and people are freaking out like Tua has interceptions, and Drew Lock is competing with Teddy Bridgewater. Where Herbert, you don't really have that because it's his job, and he was so great a year ago that it's okay that he has a couple of interceptions. I want to say he has up to 5 interceptions this training camp, maybe 6. But you kind of expect that. He also had one in the scrimmage. I think it is 6 interceptions because Derwin James made a play. Well, maybe it might not have counted. I forgot about that. But that shows you Herbert didn't count the interception because they're competing. Derwin's team and Justin Herbert's team, they're really competing, and that might be even a story in the future how these two defense and offense are really going at it, and that's why you're not seeing perfect practices. And I think Brandon Staley wants to see the mistakes because that means his defense is getting the best of Justin Herbert, but at the same time, you want Justin Herbert to be challenged because I think I asked Brandon Staley back in maybe June. I'm like, this guy broke every rookie record a year ago. How do you challenge a guy to kind of get better from that? And he's like, oh, there's plenty to challenge Justin Herbert. And you could tell Brandon Staley is such a competitor that he's thinking all night at his house, how can I get the best of Justin Herbert? And I bet you those guys are kind of going at it. So it's not clean for either side, but that's what you want to see if you're Brandon Staley, that these guys are really going at it.
Yeah, and I know this is the Jets, but Zach Wilson in his press conference today had a quote, was asked about interceptions he's had, and he actually, I thought it was really fascinating what he said. He said, this is the time to take chances and, try to see if I can fit the ball in places that might be kind of risky to do, or because it's practice. And then, go into a game, you see that situation, you say, okay, it didn't work against my defense. Let's check it down or something like that. So this is a lot of, maybe Justin Herbert just forcing throws to see if it works, feel it out. These are the time to make mistakes. Obviously, you don't want to mistake on every single throw, but 6 throws, those are a learning thing. So I don't think it's the end of the world for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say real quick, Ryan. There's a reason why every time Herbert gets, kind of not really touched, but it's a sack, he lets the ball rip because he wants to take out. It's like how like Aaron Rodgers kind of sees like a offside. He's gonna throw the ball just in case. Oh, yeah. You got nothing to lose in training camp. If you got touched already, the play's over, but might as well let it rip because the coverage is still going down, downfield and secondary. So take a chance. And Herbert's sometimes getting a touchdown at T-Billy, or he's getting picked off by Derwin James. So this is the time of year where you take a chance when you have a kind of sort of a free play. Totally.
So, all right, Gilbert, 2 more things for you, and then we'll get you out here. Appreciate you taking the time. Gilbert Manzano with the OC Register and Compas on the Beat podcast. Asante Samuel Jr., we have kind of seen him just mature before our eyes as camp started, getting more and more reps. Still my majority, I would say, with the 2s, but with Brandon Faison being banged up too with the 1s. What's been your overall thoughts on ASJ and what he's been able to do? And then how did he look in today's practice as well?
Yeah, it was kind of a slow start for Asante, which I kind of liked. And I asked him about it too. I think he liked it as well, that he had to earn his role on the team. Like he was playing behind Brandon Faison and Tavon Campbell. And you would think the 2nd round pick would be, with the starters, with Chris Harris Jr. and Michael Davis, whenever they play a nickel defense or dime, you have an extra cornerback. You would think he would be on there. But that first week, he was playing with the 2nd team, 3rd team. He wasn't getting those reps with Derwin James on the field. So he had to earn it that way. And he did, because he was being versatile. He was playing inside, outside cornerback. And the more you could do, the better for Brandon Staley, who loves just mixing and matching, because the safeties in his defense better play free safety and strong safety. Like Chris Harris Jr. is playing, safety and corner. So the more you can do, the better. And Asante proved that by being versatile. And he's a competitor. Like we've seen stories already where he wants to line up against Keenan Allen. And actually today, Asante had a nice pass break against Keenan Allen with Herbert throwing the ball. So he wants to face the best, and he wants to earn his spot. So I think at the scrimmage, though, he had a kind of bumpy ride there. He gave up some big plays, but of cornerback might be the hardest position to kind of figure out for a rookie. He's going to have growing pains, but I think so far so good. What you ask from Asante to get better week by week, and for him to kind of get out those mistakes, and in the training camp preseason should be better for him come regular season. But I think he's going to come along. It might be a while for him, but he doesn't have to be the top guy because you have Michael Davis and Chris Harris Jr. and you have Derwin James, who's so versatile as well, who can play cover. So I think for Asante, it's going to take some time, but I think so far so good.
Yeah, no, well said. And, I've said many times in a Brandon Staley, Ronaldo Hill system, they expect a lot from your defensive backs. And so it's going to take time to really get into the system and learn. And then once you get into it, then that's when you get put in the best position to succeed, and why you see breakout performances from, the Darius Williams and the Troy Hills from the Rams. And so once he feels comfortable and doesn't have to think anymore, he just plays, then it's going to be, exciting to see how he's going to do. But overall, I think he's progressed very well in this short time. So let's end with this, Gilbert. And I hate ending with a negative, positive guy, but you mentioned at the top of the show, the kicking game.
Yeah.
This has plagued the Chargers for however long I can remember. Let me ask you this question, and then you can talk about the kickers as a whole if you want. Yeah. Any shot the Chargers bring in a fourth kicker to compete, or do you think they actually feel comfortable with these three? Has Coach Swinton or Staley mentioned that at all, or they still feel cautiously optimistic about one of these guys actually seizing the job?
I don't see a fourth kicker just yet because, we haven't got to a preseason game, say, against the Rams on Saturday, and all three kickers are missing field goals just as badly as they did at the scrimmage. Then you could maybe consider, all right, we got to look elsewhere. But I don't know if they'll ever get to that point, because I think Darius Swinton really did a lot of scouting on Tristan Vizcaino, Alex Kessman. So if it doesn't work with Badgley, he's going to bank on his scouting that these two guys, from what he saw with Kessman at Pittsburgh in college, and what he saw from Vizcaino with the Niners, that those guys will pan out. But he could tell that I know Badgley was inherited by his coaching staff, but you could tell they're giving Badgley a fair shake to win the job. He's struggling. He's missing a lot of field goals right now. It might be because of lack of confidence. But I think so far, it's too early to tell. I don't know what's going to happen. I think Tristan Vizcaino is going to win the job eventually. But right now, it's kind of an even playing field. But who knows? Michael Badgley could win it back by making a bunch of field goals, being accurate. He has the most experience. He's been in pressure situations, so he might be really accurate come preseason and win that job back. But I think right now it's pretty even.
Yeah, I agree. And I like hearing you say that Vizcaino. We made it the whole show until my daughter woke up. So that's a good way to do it.
I was kind of hoping she would walk in for like a viral moment through the door, like just shoving
she's
it in.
Right here hiding. I don't know what she's doing. Just woke up from a nap, but got through it. So
I was going to say it was a ghost. So I was going to freak out. So I'm glad the baby.
I saw your face when the door just creaked open. I was like, I'm impressed that you kept your composure.
I'm going to keep going. But it was a little awkward. But then I figured it's got to be the baby.
Yeah, there you go. So, but no, I agree with you. I think Vizcaino overall is who I think has looked, I guess, better. And I do think he's the guy I'm looking forward to win the job. But we'll see. I mean, we got 3 preseason games. Let's see how it goes. I'm curious how they'll split the reps. Yeah. Let me ask you that. Has he said anything if they'll do like a kicker gets each game, if they're going to have a quarter, or we'll just they're keeping that quiet and we'll see what happens?
They haven't really said that. I think we tried asking today, what's going to be like the plan. But they're keeping it quiet. They don't want to give it away too much. But I expect all 3 kickers to get a chance come the Saturday's game preseason. So I asked Brandon Staley last week. Badgley went first in the scrimmage. I'm like, because he went first, does that mean he's the leader in the race right now? He's like, no, there's nothing to do with that. We're gonna rotate these guys. There's your beautiful daughter, just in time. Maybe she'll win the Chargers kicking job.
There you go.
But they're gonna have rotation there to kind of answer your question.
Gotcha. So, well, yeah, fun to see. I will be there Saturday, Gilbert. So hopefully can link up with you and say what up. But thanks so much for taking the time. Appreciate it. Gilbert Manzano of the OC Register, LA Daily News, and the great co-host of Compas on the Beat. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for taking the time, and look forward to see you back at training camp and at the game on Saturday.
Thank you. This was fun. Always good to talk to you, Ryan. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, brother. All right. Big thanks to Gilbert. Another big thanks to Jordan. And most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in to the LA Football Podcast. Shout out to Brewery X, the best beer in the Southland. Nay, the best beer in the country, maybe even the world. Located on the Palma Beer Trail in Anaheim. Huge brewery, huge beer garden, 30 beers on tap. Tons of good selections. 10 hardest seltzers. If you haven't checked out Brewery X, that you have to, either by going to location or go to your local Total Wine, Bevmo, or Trader Joe's and pick up some Brewery X. Tell them the guys at the LAFB Network sent you. We are planning some tailgates this season. Yes, you heard me. Live tailgates with the LA football family. And Brewery X is going to be a part of that. A lot of free booze. Going to have a lot of Brewery X beer. If you haven't tried it yet, you can try it at one of our tailgates, whether it's at a Rams game, Chargers game, Trojans game, or UCLA game. So stay tuned for those updates as we bring them to you. Follow us on all of our socials at LAFB Network. Easy to find. Myself at Ryan Dyrud LAFB. This is the LA Football Podcast. Everywhere you listen to podcasts, on YouTube at LAFB Network. Hit that subscribe button. UCLA and USC are in fall camp right now. I have a couple guests lining up for next week that will jump on with me to talk about how those camps have gone. I didn't want to just talk off cuff. I feel it'd be much more valuable to get some guys that have been there, guys and gals that have been in practice. I will be at some Trojans practice here, hopefully next week, but I haven't been yet. Just been crazy busy. Hopefully next week, though, I'll be attending a few. So I'll be able to just give my firsthand look at those, but we'll have a few people who have been there on next week. But from all indications, at least in Trojans camp, Drake London looks fantastic. My opinion, going to be the Biletnikoff winner at receiver. Number 15, number 1 in your hearts. Drake London has looked balled out from what I've heard and read. So we'll get the first hands-on conversation regarding him. And then UCLA, I've heard, has looked good. TTR is looking pretty fresh, clean. You know, you got pretty much all returning starters, minus Dimitri Felton and Osa Odigizua. So the units are coming together, looking good. The new unis, the new Under Armour with the very subtle, redefined blues and golds look fresh as hell. So we have someone in the works too to come on as well and talk with us there. So really excited about these seasons coming up. College season going to be here before we know it. I mean, we got preseason for the NFL on the Saturday, which we will be at, Chargers and Rams. But college is, regular season games start into this month. UCLA plays Hawaii. We get rolling. USC plays San Jose State. So a lot of excitement. So thank you guys. Stay tuned. Make sure to follow us for everything we're doing. Let us know any feedback, anything you want to see differently done. Trying to bring you the best LA football coverage in the land. So this is the LA Football Podcast. I am Ryan Dyrud. Have a blessed day. We'll talk to you guys all here soon.